mom, dad, who's here right now, a little awkward, but you guys genetically passed this stuff down to me, okay? So it's not my fault I'm like this. You should blame yourselves. You know, wouldn't it be awesome if I could like delete my imperfections, you know, so I could finally be awesome? Or better yet, what if my parents could just, you know, fix themselves so they wouldn't have to pass their nonsense down to me? Well, I'm sure everyone here secretly wants this too, but what if I were to tell you that as of June 2025, some lovely British gentlemen made this possible? SynHG, short for Synthetic Human Genome, is a new project that gives us the unmoderated ability to choose exactly what genome we can have. Not just your hair color, height, body odor, that's all one thing. But even your principles, passions, and personality can now be prospectively programmed by your parents. Seriously. For better or maybe worse, we have now acquired the tools of creation, the tools of gods. We are gods now. Sounds pretty awesome, but let's go to 3 major points here. How we historically arrived at this point, what this newfangled tech does, and what this means for us. Implications, are we doomed type stuff. So context, 2 pieces of which I'm going to go into. The historical lead up to CRISPR and CRISPR and how it's distinct from SynHG, a common misconception. Nature tells us it was not supposed to be this way. For millions of years, the reality for humans was this. You're stuck with the genes you got. Nature always has the final say. We didn't like this role very much. As far back as 3,000 years ago, the Greek Spartans were trying to create the strongest military by throwing their weakest babies into a pit full of lions. Old-fashioned much? But even as recently as the 20th century, J. David Smith's 1989 documentation of a diagnosis known as feeble-mindedness, which resulted in the forced sterilization of over 400,000 people, biologically barring them from reproducing, tells us the rub of eugenics, and it's this. We are scared of our own inferiorities, and if Mother Nature won't provide us the natural selection process necessary to give us our ideal selves, we must create our own natural selection process. Well, humanity's growing up and rebelling against its mother, but just you wait, because in the 21st century, humanity is about to hit puberty. CRISPR made headlines about 10 years ago for being able to change our genes. Kind of. Science analyst Marcy Gallo documents in 2017. In the 1970s, genetic researchers found in our DNA and our immune systems what appeared to be nature's version of molecular scissors. We nicknamed them CRISPR bacterias, and as we got older, old and infected DNA would kind of get edited, cut, and replaced with brand new DNA as we got older. And in 2012, scientists repurposed these bacteriums to start editing small excerpts of DNA in already living organisms. The changing of genes. Very cool. Granted, CRISPR was very limited in its reach on DNA, but it still gave us minor cures for sickle cell disease. Wait a minute. This is all silly, isn't it? I mean, throughout all of this feeble-mindedness, the Greek Spartans, we still had no control over the outcome of our brains and our bodies. These imperfections were still left up to genetic random chance, the final say of Mother Nature. And with this whole CRISPR business, we still weren't acting independently of nature. This bacteria stuff was something nature already did. We just swiped it and used it for ourselves. As independent as we wanted to seem, we were still living off Mother Nature's weekly allowance. Well, humanity's gone through puberty at this point, and we all know that every adolescent runs away from home. That's what I'm doing right now. Bye, Mom. So, enter SynHG. This tech is unlike anything we've discussed so far. All you need to know about it are 2 things. What happened 20 years ago and what just happened this year. Way back in 2001, scientists at the Human Genome Project had a bright idea. Can we compute all 3 billion nucleotides, or little pieces of genetic code that make up our genome? A feat that had never been done before. Turns out we could. The project was completed in 2003. Now, this year, at Cambridge and Oxford, a project led by Professor Jason Chin, scientists had an even brighter idea. AI is currently so powerful, it can compute 300 trillion digits of pi and can pinpoint any one of those digits down to a T if asked. So can that same AI compute those mere 3 billion digits in our DNA, plug itself into an organic version of a 3D printer, and just make DNA? Turns out we can. This year, a full human man-made chromosome has been completely printed out with every nucleotide chosen to our liking, a feat that has never been done before. Researchers also found that this can be used for embryo modification, designer babies, human beings made with our preferences. Now this is a whole new level of control we had over our world. We have truly broken away from Mother Nature's house. We don't need her anymore. So what does all this mean, huh? Well, obviously a heck of a lot, but let's try and break it down into the good and the bad in that order. So let's start with a quote from the project leader, Mr. Chin himself, and I quote, "The information gained from synthesizing the human genome may be directly useful in generating a cure for almost any disease." Guys, this is huge. No offense to CRISPR, but its influence on our DNA was limited. SynHG, however, can make any part of the genome any way we want it, with the only limit being what can be contained inside our genome. To briefly go down the list, this means Huntington's disease, Down syndrome, Alzheimer's, every single mitochondrial disease that ever existed is now curable. The list just goes on. In 2024, the Yale School of Medicine published a genome-wide association survey with over 700,000 participants, and they found that personality is even more determined by our genetics than we thought. It's been calculated that up to 60% of your personality is determined by DNA. And this is still us only knowing a fraction of what genes can do. And yet, this technology grants us 100% access to all of it. Genetically programming someone's personality can now be a thing that we can do. Are we going to destroy ourselves? Seriously, we've become extra familiar with the idea of existential threats the last few years. AI, the thing that powers SynHG, seems so far away from becoming a problem just a few years ago. In 2015, OpenAI was just a research project. I mean, if you told someone back then the existential threat AI would become, he'd be laughed out of the room. Ha ha ha. Because this is also new, or no, pardon me, SynHG might not seem like much right now, as it is currently just a research project, but history tells us that we are notoriously bad at predicting the unintended consequences of our own advancements. Because this is also new, it's hard to tell what this will do to our brains, but famous podcast guest Neil deGrasse Tyson said something in an interview 10 years ago, rough in its estimation, but eerie in meaning. Our DNA is 1% different from chimpanzees, which is what makes us so much smarter than them. The smartest chimpanzee ever recorded is about as smart as our average 5-year-old. So imagine a species with DNA 1% different from ours, where our smartest human who ever lived is about as smart as their average 5-year-old. Only a 1% DNA alteration is needed. If such a species were to coexist on Earth with us, who's to say they wouldn't conquer us? Like we conquered Homo habilis, like we conquered the rest of the animal kingdom, like our scientists and the Spartans conquered our inferior versions of us. SynHG represents the crossing of a threshold that once crossed cannot be uncrossed. Now today we went into 3 parts: how we arrived historically at this location, what this tech does, and how this tech leaves us with more solutions, but also many more problems. In other words, how we ran away from Mother Nature, made our own little world without her, and ended up more scared, dumbfounded, and uncertain than we were before. Perhaps we're all going to be just fine, and the techno-salvation is just around the corner. We're too smart to destroy ourselves. This may be true, but our track record tells us that the scientists and politicians implementing this techno-salvation be held as responsible as possible. Failing that, there may be nobody coming over the hill to save us. Yeah, sure, my parents, Mom, may have passed down acne, baldness, and a weird vibe down to me, sure. But you know what? That's okay. Because if my parents weren't exactly who they were when they made me, I probably wouldn't be standing here talking to you right now. I mean, I wouldn't be me. And I like being me. No adjustments of imperfections necessary. Perhaps humanity should knock on Mother Nature's door again, see how she's doing, maybe give her a big hug. Because we can play gods all we want, but we are not gods. More beautiful than that, we are human beings.